hard.
Sure, but he did pass.
We do have hints from Trump, and
sure, but he did pass a big test when he de-escalated with Russia, says we shouldn't be massing troops on their border because that's totally illegitimate. The problem is Hillary and Obama and Kerry, they've been caught in the memos, the WikiLeaks. Kerry's been caught on tape helping create ISIS out of al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, Saudi Arabia. They have a deal with them to expand Islamic Jihad, Wahhabism worldwide. So I agree with you in your op-ed where you said, you know, is Trump being consistent, being anti-war? But it's not war if we're cleaning up a mess that our own country created with al-Qaeda pouring into Europe, creating a bigger crisis. I mean, isn't it just to go in there and kick them out of Syria or at least let the Russians do it?
Not from my viewpoint. This is where we can disagree, because I say just come home. We've created it, and being there is just going to escalate. And this whole thing, I think, and I praise Trump when I think he does right, especially with Russia. Why are these people wanting, the neocons wants to stir up a fight with Russia? But why do we have to stir up a fight with China and say, well, you built a little island out there, and it's a mile long, and we're not going to let you do this? And that's just a threat. And I think this protectionism and threatening China and shifting gears, isn't it? You treat them all the same way. I just think that...
Well, China's been threatening to attack the U.S. Sure. But, I mean, China's been... Here's the thing. We have agreements with China, and this is the old global order. It's falling apart. But the reason Trump's making his point is the old global order, the globalist setup, was already falling apart. China had the deal for exclusive rare earth minerals and manufacturing. We were going to let them dominate that. We would dominate military. They broke that deal. I disagree, as you do, with the whole deal they've had, you know, since Nixon. So what do we put in place of that? I don't want world order. I don't want a world government. But how do we not let the normal evil forces come in then and take advantage of the chaos?
But the people that are dealing with it, you know, there's a mess over in Ukraine, and we participated, we precipitated it. Just get out of there and let the local people support this out. But this whole idea about China and worrying about China attacking the United States, they have one aircraft carrier, you know, and we spend so much. We spend more money than the next 10 countries together, and yet we're still, you're right in criticizing this preparation for war against Russia, and Trump wants to settle that down. That's very good. But why transfer it? That's Kissinger's position. Keep the Chinese fighting with the Russians and separate the two, because we don't want them to be allies. So now our position is to go after the Chinese. You know, I was in high school when the Chinese were fighting and killing people, including one of my teachers who was over to Korea. And it's so much different now. I think we should trade. There's never been any interruption in the South China Sea with. Well,
I agree. I don't want war with sir. I don't want war. I don't want war with China at all. I don't like them. I don't like them buying up Hollywood and trying to control what we do here. Let me bring this up though, because it deals with the press and attacks on freedom. There's a big call for Trump to move to repeal the law that Obama signed, federalizing media, putting the CIA over it. This Truth Department at the State Department. There's also all 50 state attorney generals have asked him to not let Homeland Security federalize elections. You're a constitutionalist. You're more of an expert than probably any of us on this. I mean, isn't it already super unconstitutional to have the federal government over the media, A? And then B, what about this whole thing where they're calling for Homeland Security? Well, they've done it to federalize elections.
Yeah, and that's why I fear, you know, that we're militarizing the Department of Homeland Security. I think and you know darn well what I thought of Homeland Security after 9/11. I voted adamantly opposed to the Department of Homeland Security. Now it's bigger than ever. So, and the CIA, if you're a strict constitutionalist, you allow the gathering of intelligence, but you don't allow the cloak and dagger stuff, where the CIA works with these special forces and goes around the world. And believe me, that is going to accelerate, because we're going to go anywhere, every place that there's a suspect, not where we've proven anything, but he's suspected that he could commit terrorism, that we're going to go after him. I say, just get out of
Well, I can tell you,
I mean, this is how you create the hatred toward us, is by people have to understand what blowback really is. And I'm a strong believer in blowback. There is a reaction, and it incites people who are already borderline in their thinking. So why do that? It's like poking at rattlesnakes and jumping into the snake.
Sure. Well, UN President
just has to.
UN President Trump agreed back in 2003, and I was anti-war, as you know. You were coming on at the time. pointing out why it was wrong to go into Iraq. They'd been our ally previous, and they were secular. I mean, one of the better regimes in the area, certainly not our business. Right. So Trump was right about that. You were right about that. His point is we've got to get the Saudi Arabian expansion under control, or it will be an ongoing war and cause crisis. He wants to actually stamp it out, not go in and stir it up. He wants to kick it out of the West. And I do think that Trump is going to be militaristic and basically no limit when it comes to taking out the Islamic Jihad.
Well, cross your fingers on that one, I'll tell you. I don't think it has anything to do with national defense. I think that has to do with ego. And I think the sooner we realize that, the better off we're going to be. And we have to understand what the reason is. And Saudi Arabia, I mean, there's people, even the Secretary of State now is somewhat sympathetic to the Saudis. And the Saudis are the ones that we, deal with. Our CIA deals with them. And they radicalized the Muslims to help defeat the Soviet system in Afghanistan. And then as time went on, they turned on us.
No, I get it. It's the blowback.
I think we should stay out of that. Yeah, we have to realize that is very, very dangerous. There's a lot of problems in the world, and I
understand you're a long-term thinker, and I respect that. You're a long-term thinker. Speaking of media.